What if you could reclaim hours of free time each week, create legacy building wealth, and devote more energy to your passion projects without giving up on your career as a life-saving MD? My name is Vikram Raya, functional cardiologist, high performance coach, and real estate expert. And I'm here to give you the tools, strategies, and solutions you need to transform your life so you can unlock your limitless potential and achieve greatness, all the while freeing up your precious time. Welcome to Limitless MD. Let's dive in. Let's talk about, I know in the green room, we're talking about biohacking and how we can take our health to that next level. Do you believe anti-aging and longevity and biohacking is viable? Do you think that's the next step in our health evolution? Tell me your thoughts.
So I think that our natural system of living, if you just extended and said, hey, how long should a human live? I think that you would say a human with a good health span, so adequate health and appropriate everything else, feeling good, should be 120 plus. But that's not what's happening. Our lifespan, which is different than health, our lifespan for males, Caucasian is in the 80 range, 78 to 80, and for females, it's a little bit higher. But their health span is 10 years less than that. And so the first thing, and I don't like the word anti-aging because I'm not against aging. I just want to have the best possible long-term outcome in the healthiest capacity I can. And so I think there's a lot of things that we can do to maximize that. And the first thing is to ask ourselves, what are the things that are impeding our capacity? And it'll come down to metabolic inflammation. At the end of the day, how you behave cognitively, how you feel physically, it comes down to metabolic inflammation. And then you look at all of the feeder units that go into it. So it's basically a functional medicine approach. You want to identify all of those aspects of your life that are detracting and all of the things that are positive and see how they interact with each other. The fundamental basis, though, will be that metabolism. Is it because you've been exposed to glyphosates and you've got a mitochondrial defect? Is it because you don't have enough sunlight and you don't produce intramitochondrial melatonin? Is it because you have too much omega-6 and you become insulin resistant? I mean, there's so many factors. And that's why that interaction between our biology, our genetics, our social skills, our cortisol production, our oxytocin, all of those things interact. And that's the field that I deal with in medicine. But I deal with it in a way that I really manage large populations of people that don't have a lot of money, but I'm trying to get them healthy, because if you don't, we screw our healthcare system. I mean, we waste about 2/3 of the U.S. healthcare system is wasted in resources that we could really do something else with that are easily fixable. And we're just down on the wrong pathway right now.
So if you're giving advice to your kids or to a colleague who has done everything relatively well, pretty healthy, don't really have inflammation, reasonable metabolic health, what's next? What are the top 3 to 5 things that you say, hey, you got to get into this? I know you've spent time with people like Dave Asprey and other, famous biohackers out there, but what based on common sense and sort of that next level up, what do you think?
Okay, so step 1, though, is actually make sure you're healthy, because there's a huge discrepancy between what we presume and what is. And so there are necessary tools that we can use to identify our health status. And one of them, and I can give you a whole list of them, but omega-6 to 3 fatty acid ratio is really important to understand. A gamma glutamyl transferase, determining what your liver function is and making sure that it's normal. A low insulin level, appropriate, a whole host of other factors. Like LDL-C means absolutely nothing to me. I don't even care. And if you're on a statin because you have a high LDL-C, that really doesn't mean much to me. Now, if you have a high LDL-P, that means something to me. It's a particle count. And that's worthwhile attaching to. So first, get a heads up display of what you actually have. Once you've cleared those rudimentary numbers, what are the factors that are associated with it? The number one factor that we miss is sleep. I mean, sleep is absolutely necessary. And if you don't have that sleep, 7+ hours, 7 to 8 hours, that's really important. Another necessary element is light. The thing is that we used to get a ton of infrared light and near infrared light. We don't get that anymore. We don't have incandescent lights. We're not outside and we're stuck under LEDs. And we've reduced our exposure to infrared by over 90% since 1950. And that's a big deal because infrared light is, so people think melatonin is that circadian hormone that allows you to go to sleep at night. Well, that's only 5% of what melatonin does. And that's only 5% of your biologic production of melatonin. Melatonin, 95% of it is triggered by production by activating cytochrome C with infrared light. And that melatonin is produced inside your mitochondria. And it's what allows you to act as a potent antioxidant. It is one of our most potent antioxidant systems that we have, and it's what recovers the biogenics, the bioenergetics of the mitochondria. So light exposure, sleep, and then, muscle mass is the organ of longevity. If you lose your muscle mass, you're done. And so you have to do significant exercise. And I don't mean getting on some treadmill and walking. I mean, you have to lift weights because that's what determines how you do it. Now, inside that, there are other caveats. Like I encourage my patients to get into sauna. Sauna usage reduces cardiovascular risk by 65%. And that's been shown in Swedish studies. It's been shown in Finland. It's been shown in a whole host of other things. Getting into a sauna to trigger a hormetic response, to get heat shock protein 9 to trigger, that's going to give you the equivalent of running a half marathon. Do that daily. I want my patients out there doing it absolutely every day. And so I spend a lot of my time bringing patients in, and I deal with a lot of patients that don't have any money. And I start off de-prescribing them meds because I got to get them off their insulin. I got to get them off their blood pressure medicine. I got to get them away from those things by changing their body habitus. I got to get their weight off. And weight is not about appearance. Weight is what it does. I mean, weight's an active organ, and it produces a ton of leptin. If you have a bunch of visceral fat, you're producing leptin constantly. And leptin is a potent inflammatory cytokine. And even 5 or 10 pounds of it is a huge deal. So those are the kind of things that I focus in on.
That's, I'm just blown away by the breadth and depth of your knowledge. I get a lot of folks on the podcast, but Dr. Padda, it's been an absolute pleasure to speak with you and for you to share so much information to our listeners. But if you're up for it, I'd love to keep going here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Tell me now about, you travel the world, you speak on health, you speak on finance, you speak on, geopolitical issues. What drives you? What's your motivation, man?
So the motivation is to leave the world in a better place. I mean, that's what all of our motivation should be. And we are constantly reinventing ourselves. We make commitments to our lives back when we were little kids, and we make commitments that we don't realize we've made, but they're very important to us. And so my commitment, which became pretty overt to me as my parents got older, I realized that I'd made a commitment, and that commitment was to make sure that I left this world in a better place. So I have to do everything I can to help people because, I've made money. I'm okay with that. I've traveled and I've had amazing experiences. And so now I'm doing things that I can really turn around and say, okay, look, I can help this population, or I can help this. I'm on the board of directors of something called Exoneration Nation. Exoneration Nation takes people who have been wrongfully committed, wrongfully accused of crimes, who are now in federal custody, who are now serving jail sentences, but for crimes they didn't commit. And so we go and we do the research and we document it and we get them out of prison. And a lot of them are on death row. And these are people that have been incarcerated for reasons that had nothing to do with them. I'm not saying they're great people. They did something stupid at some time or another to entangle themselves in the legal system, and re-educating them so they don't do that again is critical. So you don't want to have somebody released for something that they didn't commit, and then they go off and commit something else. Now, the thing is, the natural look of that is that what you find out is most of them, when they come out, they're pretty sick, and a lot of them end up dying of cancer. A lot of them end up dying of metabolic inflammation and metabolic disease. So that's always been revelatory to me, that, here we are in a controlled feeding setting, and we can identify what food these people eat, and they're following the American dietary guidelines exactly to the letter, because that's what prisons have to do. And they're the sickest population when they come out. So my goal is always to give back. So I try to give back wherever I can, whether it's, giving information or whether it's trying to participate. Right now, I'm Sikh, and I'm helping build a gospel museum for the African American community in St. Louis. And so we're helping them put that together. I think that your behavior has to transcend all religious lines. It should not be based upon color. It should not be based upon religion. You just have to find areas that you can really help in. And you're going to be presented with things that are really cool, and you have to seize that opportunity. And so that's what I'm doing. And I try to get on podcasts to share information, hoping that somebody will glean one or two things and they'll go, okay, well, that makes sense. Or I can really deep dive into that.
Tell me about, I think you've written a couple of books, or you have a book that people can definitely pick up. I believe it's Next Level Your Life. Yeah,
it's Next Level Your Life. I'm one of the authors. It's number one in like 41 or 42 categories, and there's like 30 authors. So it's nothing spectacular. I just have one chapter in it. But what it is a group of stories of people that are kind of doing what I'm doing. And it's groups of people that have excelled in a particular area, and trying to make a difference. It's a pretty good book. It's a good read. It tells stories through the eyes of the people that lived them directly. We could go on forever, because we all have these amazing experiences, and trying to codify them so other people can understand them is the difficulty and the challenge that we always have. Like I'll tell you, you almost have to you have to be intellectually curious constantly. But in order to be intellectually curious, you have to be brain healthy, and you have to be physically healthy, and you have to, you have to reduce your stresses, and then you have to almost examine things as an outsider at all times, even if you're the insider. The second that you start examining things as if you're the insider, you lose the perspective of the thing. To give another concrete example of crisis. So I wanted to visit headhunters in New Guinea, in Papua New Guinea, and in the highlands of Indonesia. And I knew that they had just eaten that Rockefeller kid right before I got there. And this was, not like right before, but like a year or two before. And I knew that they'd eaten him. And I had done enough research that I knew that if I showed up at night, they were going to think I'm an evil spirit. Now, I've traveled through a lot of cultures, and I've lived with Aborigines, and I know that things don't work out exactly like you expect, because you can't ask for help, and there's nobody with you, and you might be stuck. And the laws there are not the laws anywhere else. So I knew that I had arrived at this village, and I couldn't show up at night. So I took my canoe, and I got myself in the middle of the river and stayed there all night, and made sure that I didn't touch the banks of the river. And I stayed a distance from them, and then came into the village the next day in broad daylight, with gifts. And my gifts were, I remember it was a little pen that I had gotten, and I gave it to the chief of the village as a gift. And it was a little pen I'd gotten from McDonald's that had a little emblem on it, and it clicked. And he thought it was the greatest thing ever. And these people, to them, this was amazing. And they thought that I was a good spirit because I arrived in the daytime and they didn't have to kill me. And then I could spend the next, couple of weeks with them and learn their culture and hang out. But if I had arrived at night, I would have been in trouble. I would have been eaten, and the head chief would have been wearing my glasses, and they would have denied any knowledge of me.
Oh my God, this is amazing. So, and that's just the breadth and the depth of all the things you shared is just brilliant. So thank you again. Dr. Padda. And his book, guys, is Next Level Your Life. Please find that on Amazon. And what's the best way for people to get connect with you, get a hold of you?
Yeah, so probably the easiest way, especially if it's physicians that are interested in just having a conversation, LinkedIn is the easy way. Just find me there, Gurpreet Singh Padda, Padda. But also through our website, Red Pill Capital, and that's capital with a K, Kapital. I work with a whole bunch of folks. I do direct real estate investment. I do my own projects. Plus, I co-invest with people, and then sometimes act as a GP. And so I'm always like, I want to dig deep into my projects because I don't just do it just to do the financials on it. I do it because I'm trying to make a difference and make sure the thing makes money, and look at situations, see where they're going to deteriorate and how they could be made better. So I spend a lot of time analyzing. And I've done it long enough that I don't get stuck in paralysis. Because I mean, that's the other thing. A lot of physicians, we get stuck in paralysis because we think it has to be perfect. And perfect is not the answer. The answer is cover your downside and keep moving forward and take micro jumps. You don't have to make a home run on every single deal. There's deals you're going to make home runs and beyond, and there's some deals it's just going to be a base hit. And understand that. And if you do it that way, you end up doing a lot better.
Awesome, guys. Well, you heard it, guys. As we wrap up here, again, thanks again for listening into the podcast. And again, until next time, be phenomenal. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Limitless MD. If you found value from this episode, I encourage you to share this episode with a friend and let me know by leaving a review. For more information, make sure you check out the links in the show notes below or simply visit vikramraya.com. So until next time, my friends, be phenomenal.